On the morning of September 4th, 2004, Julie Keown woke up feeling strangely dizzy. Minutes later, her words tangled and her legs wouldn't cooperate. By the time she reached a Boston hospital, she could barely move. Doctors scrambled as her body began to shut down, but no one knew why. Just a few days earlier, Julie had been laughing with her family. Now she hovered between life and death. Her blood work showed something unusual, yet the answer stayed hidden, until one quick-thinking nurse ordered a test most people never consider. Behind the smiling photos and weekend getaways lurked a web of ambition, debt, and betrayal, and it would take years to untangle the truth. If you're a fan of true crime and criminal investigations, you won't want to miss our new book, The Ultimate Book of Serial Killers: 180 Files of the World's Most Notorious Murderers, now available on Amazon. You can also purchase the PDF version directly from our website for instant download. You'll find the link in the video description and in a pinned comment. Now, let's dive into today's case. In the quiet town of Plattsburgh, Missouri, nestled within the heart of the Midwest, Julie Irene Olddag, later known as Julie Keown, grew up in a peaceful, loving environment. Born on May 16, 1973, she was the eldest of two children, sharing her childhood with her younger brother Chad. The Olddag family lived in a picturesque farmhouse that reflected the steady, rural charm of their life. Julie's parents, Nancy and Jack, were deeply respected by neighbors. They lived modestly but comfortably, supported by the fruits of their farming labor. Life on the farm taught Julie responsibility and humility. Surrounded by nature and grounded in strong religious faith, her childhood was marked by stability and care. Julie was the kind of person people remembered: empathetic, selfless, and always ready to lend a hand. She had a presence that put others at ease. Her quiet strength made her dependable, and she developed a strong sense of purpose from a young age. Academically, she thrived. Thanks to the support of her close-knit family, she was able to attend excellent schools and consistently earn the praise of her teachers. Eventually, her compassion guided her toward a career in nursing. Determined to follow that path, Julie enrolled at William Jewell College in Liberty, Missouri. There, she not only excelled in her studies, but also formed lasting friendships. Still, despite her academic and personal successes, Julie often felt something was missing. Many of her friends had started building romantic relationships, and she too hoped to find someone to share her life with. It was through a mutual friend that she was introduced to a fellow student on a blind date, James Keown. James, a year younger than Julie, had a very different personality. He was charismatic, outgoing, and ambitious. Well known across campus for his work at the college radio station, James had aspirations of a career in broadcasting. Coming from a well-off family, the Keowns enjoyed certain privileges. His father, a respected lobbyist, and his mother, Betty, had high hopes for their 6 children. James stood out among his siblings. He was bold, confident, and used to drawing attention, qualities that earned him both admirers and critics. In July, James found a calming presence. Her gentleness balanced his intensity. She, in turn, was drawn to his energy and drive. Their connection was immediate. It wasn't long before they became inseparable, a campus couple known by everyone. Their relationship brought out the best in both of them. Julie's quiet determination and James's enthusiasm formed a strong foundation as they pursued their individual goals. While still attending college, James landed a job as a local radio host. He was driven, and his voice quickly became familiar to listeners in the area. Julie remained focused on her studies and clinical training, preparing for the demands of nursing. After graduation, the two took the next step and got married. They relocated to Kansas City, excited to build a life together. Professionally, both flourished. Julie began working at a hospital where her natural empathy and strong work ethic made her an exceptional nurse. She connected with her patients, seeing each one as a person, not just a case. Her superiors admired her dedication. Meanwhile, James was thriving in his radio career, juggling jobs at two different stations and steadily rising through the ranks. Together, they embodied a picture of success, young, ambitious, and deeply committed to their respective professions. Their life appeared happy and secure, a union built on shared values, mutual support, and a blend of quiet strength and public charisma. But, as James's professional responsibilities expanded, so did the demands of his schedule. He earned a generous income, but his days became increasingly packed with meetings, commitments, and side projects. Both he and Julie found themselves caught up in a fast-paced lifestyle that left little room for downtime. Their home, though filled with love, was often quiet, empty of their presence. Life became a flurry of early mornings, long workdays, and late returns. James, despite his growing workload, made an effort to keep their relationship strong. He surprised Julie with spontaneous weekend getaways and thoughtful gifts, tokens of affection she cherished, though she never asked for them. Julie adored him. Her love for James was steadfast, deep, and unshakable. The couple moved often to accommodate James's career moves. They lived in Chicago for a stretch before settling back in Kansas. These transitions didn't come easy, but Julie remained supportive, always adapting to new environments with grace. Professionally, James was seen as creative, versatile, and sharp. He had studied marketing, and it showed in everything he did. He was bursting with ideas and strategies, which made him a valuable asset to any company. His income reflected this. The Keowns enjoyed a privileged life. They owned a stunning home and frequently traveled. While Julie found joy in the simple things, James preferred the finer side of life. He proudly wore his Rolex, drove sleek new vehicles, and replaced them with newer models every couple of years. Julie's family took notice. They were pleased to see her thriving in what appeared to be a happy, successful marriage. As time went on, questions began to surface from relatives about when the couple might start a family. But behind closed doors, this topic brought pain. Julie and James had been trying to have a child for years. Their efforts were sincere, their longing real. They consulted specialists, ran a battery of tests, and explored every avenue available to them. Yet, they were left without answers. Nothing medically explained the infertility. Still, they pressed on, hoping, praying, and continuing their lives while carrying the weight of uncertainty. James, ever ambitious, remained focused on personal growth and professional advancement. Though he had already gained local recognition as a radio presenter, he aspired to reach higher. In 2003, he applied to Harvard Business School. He was accepted and awarded a prestigious scholarship. The news was life-changing. The Keowns abruptly relocated to Boston so James could begin his studies. Julie transitioned to working remotely in the field of medical software. James, too, took on remote marketing work. For Julie, This move meant emotional distance from home. She missed her parents, her brother, and the familiar comforts of Missouri. But her love for James outweighed the homesickness. She threw herself into supporting him. She spoke proudly of his achievements, always quick to express admiration for his determination and drive. James, now rubbing shoulders with elite minds at Harvard, continued to cultivate his public image. Yet even with all his accomplishments, he seemed endlessly hungry for more. Julie still clung to the hope of becoming a mother, but her health began to decline in ways she couldn't ignore. Roughly 8 months after their move, she was struck by persistent fatigue. Her muscles ached, her immune system faltered, and she found herself sick more often than not. Despite undergoing multiple medical exams, doctors found no clear explanation. Then, on August 20th, 2004, things took a sudden and alarming turn. Julie woke with a pounding headache and an overwhelming sense of disorientation. The room spun around her and her speech began to slur. Simple tasks became insurmountable. She could barely write or hold a pen. Terrified, the couple rushed to the hospital. When they arrived, Julie was visibly deteriorating. She struggled to sign consent forms, her motor functions rapidly declining. The medical staff immediately recognized the gravity of her condition. After running urgent tests, doctors began to suspect a link to her kidneys. Whatever was happening, it was advancing fast, and Julie was now in serious danger. In August 2004, Julie received news that would shift the course of her life. Her kidneys were no longer functioning properly. Until then, her health issues had been a troubling mystery, and only now did some doctors begin to suspect that her infertility might be connected to deeper, chronic kidney problems. Still, despite extensive testing, the puzzle remained incomplete. Her symptoms were severe: muscle weakness, confusion, fatigue, yet not everything aligned with standard kidney failure diagnoses. Physicians considered the possibility of a rare renal disorder, but nothing they found offered a full explanation. Julie spent 3 days in the hospital. Surprisingly, her condition began to improve without any clear medical intervention. With no concrete diagnosis beyond the kidney concerns, she was discharged. Doctors remained perplexed, but her symptoms had eased, and Julie was eager to reset. She decided to take a short trip back to Missouri to visit her family. Surrounded by familiar faces and rural comfort, Julie seemed to blossom. Her spirits lifted, her strength returned, and her loved ones were relieved to see her smiling again. At that moment, it seemed like the worst had passed. But that hope was short-lived. Soon after returning to Boston, Julie's health declined once more. The strange symptoms returned: dizziness, fatigue, and speech issues, though this time they were slightly less intense. Her family, now deeply concerned, began to wonder whether these episodes were somehow psychological. Perhaps the distance from home, the stress of relocation, or even the emotional toll of infertility was manifesting physically. Even her doctors floated the possibility that her symptoms could be stress-induced, yet no one could rule out that something more serious was still unfolding beneath the surface. Tragically, on September 4th, 2004, just 2 weeks after her first hospitalization, Julie's condition took a dramatic and terrifying turn. She was admitted to the hospital again, but this time, the situation was dire. She could barely speak. Her body was nearly paralyzed, and within hours of her arrival, she slipped into a coma. The doctors now knew her kidneys were only part of the problem. Whatever was attacking her body was far more destructive and more mysterious than they had realized. Despite extensive diagnostic efforts, nothing pointed to a definitive cause. Her organs began shutting down one by one. Then, a stroke of insight, almost accidental, changed everything. A nurse, struck by the unusual nature of the case, suggested toxicology screening. Such tests weren't standard in situations like this, but her hunch turned out to be crucial. When the toxicology report came back, it revealed a chilling truth. Julie had ethylene glycol in her system. This chemical, commonly found in antifreeze and engine coolant, is deadly when ingested. Its symptoms mimic those Julie had endured: kidney failure, confusion, physical deterioration. The discovery confirmed it. Julie had been poisoned. On that very day, September 4th, as Julie lay comatose and unresponsive, her family arrived at the hospital. They were devastated to find her in such a condition, unable to communicate or even open her eyes. There was nothing left to do but wait. 4 days later, on September 8, 2004, Julie passed away. She was only 31 years old. Despite the medical team's best efforts, the diagnosis had come too late. Her body was simply too damaged. Julie's death sent shockwaves through her family and friends. Just days earlier, she had been talking and laughing with them. Now she was gone. As the toxicology results surfaced, her parents immediately suspected foul play. Someone had administered this poison, and the circumstances pointed to someone close. Suspicion naturally fell on her husband, James. By that time, law enforcement had already begun looking into the matter. The presence of ethylene glycol triggered an automatic investigation. Detectives began collecting medical records, witness statements, and household items that could be relevant. Publicly, James portrayed the role of the grieving husband. He expressed shock, sadness, and confusion over what had happened. He denied any involvement, even suggesting that Julie may have taken the antifreeze herself, perhaps in a moment of depression over her health struggles, their recent relocation, and their inability to have children. But not everyone was convinced. The nurse who had first recommended toxicology screening later confided that she found James's behavior unsettling from the beginning. He dominated conversations with doctors, answered questions meant for Julie, and gave off the impression that he was controlling every aspect of her care. Something didn't feel right. While some believed James's behavior at the hospital could be explained by Julie's inability to speak, perhaps he was simply trying to advocate for her, others found it unsettling. At one point, James suggested a strange theory that Julie might have consumed antifreeze by mistake, thinking it was another liquid. Investigators grew more suspicious when they discovered that Julie had a $250,000 life insurance policy. On the surface, this might not seem like a significant motive for a man who appeared to live comfortably. But questions arose. Was James truly as wealthy as he appeared, or was it all an illusion? Not long after Julie's death, another piece of the puzzle emerged. The landlord of their Boston apartment reached out to authorities. James had vanished without warning, abandoning the apartment and leaving behind personal effects: Julie's wedding dress, their wedding rings, and photographs from their ceremony. These weren't things a grieving husband would normally part with. Soon after, it was confirmed that James had returned to Missouri and taken a job as a talk show host at a local radio station, seemingly eager to start fresh. Investigators discovered that the rent for his Boston apartment had gone unpaid for months. His luxury vehicle had been repossessed. Even more disturbing, James had falsified a letter claiming acceptance to Harvard Business School, an elaborate lie he used to justify working remotely for a marketing company. That same company had hired him to develop a website, a high-stakes project that earned him significant pay. But James failed to deliver any results. It was unclear whether he lacked the necessary skills or simply chose not to do the work. What became evident was that he had been embezzling funds designated for the project. His resume was riddled with falsehoods, listing positions in companies he had never worked for. No one, not even Julie, had known the extent of his deception. Despite pretending to go to work each day, purchasing new furniture, and continuing his lavish lifestyle, James was spiraling into financial ruin. The utilities were on the verge of being cut, and he had no stable income. Against that backdrop, Julie's life insurance policy began to look more and more like a potential lifeline. Back in Missouri, James told new acquaintances conflicting stories about Julie's death. In some versions, she had succumbed to a mysterious illness. In others, she had taken her own life. When asked what he planned to do with the insurance money, he responded casually. He'd buy a new BMW. He even mentioned that he had started seeing someone new and hoped to build a family. Meanwhile, the investigation pressed forward, with James now firmly in the spotlight. Despite growing suspicion, direct evidence against him was elusive. His behavior raised many red flags, but the case remained circumstantial. Friends recalled James saying that he wouldn't be convicted. After all, it was only circumstantial. Strangely, he never explicitly denied involvement in Julie's death. Detectives continued combing through physical evidence, searching James's home, his family's property, and the Boston apartment, but nothing was found. The breakthrough came from James's computer. Though he had attempted to erase the hard drive, forensic specialists recovered search history containing chilling phrases such as "how to get rid of someone" and "antifreeze poisoning." These findings aligned disturbingly well with the toxicology results. Investigators also learned that weeks before Julie's death, James had been encouraging her to drink Gatorade. Tests revealed the poison had likely been administered over time, explaining her mysterious illness in August. On this foundation, prosecutors built their case. In 2005, James was arrested. His trial began in 2008. Prosecutors faced an uphill battle, as the evidence was largely circumstantial. But James's financial troubles, the false persona he constructed, and the timing of Julie's poisoning painted a damning portrait. Many who had once admired James were shocked to discover the web of lies he had maintained. Still, some described him as a loving husband and questioned whether he could be capable of such a calculated act. The defense worked to raise reasonable doubt. They suggested Julie's emotional distress, triggered by health struggles and infertility, might have led to her ingesting the antifreeze herself, whether by accident or intent. They questioned the accuracy of toxicology reports and the timeline of her decline. Most importantly, they emphasized that there was no definitive proof that James had physically administered the poison. But the jury saw through the facade. The search history, the Gatorade connection, the insurance policy, and James's pattern of deceit were too much to ignore. While no antifreeze container was ever found, the medical evidence confirmed Julie had been poisoned over time. In her final weeks, she had written to friends, noting James's care and that he had encouraged her to drink the vitamin-laced beverage, even though she disliked the taste. Perhaps the most telling moment came after the funeral. James wasted no time collecting the insurance payout. In 2008, James Keown was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The court concluded he had deliberately and gradually poisoned his wife by lacing her drinks with ethylene glycol, the toxic substance found in antifreeze. To this day, James maintains his innocence, but Julie's family is unwavering in their belief that justice was served. In 2017, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court upheld his conviction, ruling the evidence against him overwhelming. Julie Keown, remembered as a compassionate nurse, a devoted wife, and a loving daughter, was stolen from the world far too soon. Her warmth, sincerity, and grace live on in the hearts of those who knew her, and in the enduring pursuit of truth that followed her untimely death. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.